I'm Sina. I'm one of the growers here at Market Garden.
My name's Rosanna, and we manage the market garden together. And we're here to supply the Wilding Kitchen Shop with lots of produce throughout the season.
So Nep is this, it used to be an arable dairy farm, and now it's a pioneering rewilding project, 20 odd years old. Really successful in creating biodiversity, lots of species have come back. Recently, they've opened this shop and cafe, the Wilding Kitchen and Shop, and we're here to supply them, basically, and that's why there's a market garden here.
Yeah.
We're very much linked with this new venture.
And this is a kind of tiny corner of the Nep estate where I think, in a way, the rewilding project's flipped on its head. The rewilding project is this focus on biodiversity with the byproduct of food, and here we're really focusing on producing as much food as we can, and then the biodiversity is sort of the byproduct. So we really try to protect that as much as we can with the focus on food. It expands that idea of what can land management look like, and how do we produce food in a way that works really well with supporting as many species as possible.
So we started here in March 2022.
Yeah.
Just the two of us. I think one of the things we've enjoyed a lot is the team expanding, and building a team.
Yeah.
Having Ali and Sophie with us this year makes a huge difference.
I think in terms of starting a site from the beginning, I feel like we get the opportunity to really grow with the space and understand it in much more intricate detail than coming into an established system. So sort of figuring out what we think works really well.
So we were lucky to have a season before the Wilding Kitchen and Shop opened. So there's this, which was nice to get a little head start and get ourselves established. But then that relationship evolving now and sort of getting closer and closer in us sort of sometimes telling the chefs what to cook with, but them also telling us what to grow, and that dynamic is really interesting. It's not an easy one for sure, but it's really quite rewarding.
Clay is definitely our biggest challenge, and I think the past 2 winters have been really wet, so drainage is definitely a challenge. I think we didn't have so much experience with cover cropping and undersowing before we came here. We sort of knew about it theoretically and worked a little bit with it on other farms, but that really feels like where we're seeing the biggest successes, where we've got diverse living roots in the ground over winter. We're definitely seeing better drainage, easier to work with the following year, and it feels like the method that works well. It gives us the opportunity to choose like chicory and the cover crops to have those deep roots penetrating down.
The first spring we were here was like quite hot and dry and sort of nice. Then it was wet last year, and this year it was really wet. So I think it's also about accepting a bit more that this is not a site for super early cropping, or we might try to get some crops in the ground early, but sort of accepting that it takes a long time to warm up, but then it also stays warmer in autumn, so maybe that's more our window.
Within the fence, the market garden's 3 acres, and we're with the Soil Association, so we follow a classic 6-block crop rotation, and we manage the outdoor production in 2 different ways. So I mentioned the cover cropping, but we till one half of it and try to do a lot of undersowings and cover crop in between the vegetables, and ask plants to do the work of protecting the soil for us. And then the other side, I would say no dig style, because we're not putting on a huge amount of compost, but we're not tilling. Yeah, so really thinking about the soil as leading our practices, and how can we build more life in the soil and build topsoil.
And then we're sat in the propagation tunnel, or in the tunnel that's half propagation, so we grow everything from seed, and then it's sort of half, bit of tomatoes, bit of tomatillos, flowers behind us. Then we have a brand new multi-span, sort of triple span tunnel.
Well, the frame is second-hand.
The frame is second-hand, that's true, but it's new to us.
Yeah, new to us.
And 4 caterpillar tunnels as well. So I think coming from that market garden in Denmark supplying restaurants in Copenhagen and coming here, and there's a restaurant. We're very much about the food side of it, and we're very, like, we like to eat and like good food. So that was like the main thing before. Obviously, being at NEP in the middle of a rewilding project and sort of constantly hearing about, like, oh, now this rare species of butterfly has been sighted, or we get these like constant reminders of the environment around us and nature and taking care of that.
There's some napa cabbages that are nearly ready. Very exciting.
That's right.
Sorry.
That is exciting. Thanks, Sophie.
And I mean, we've also come from wanting to use regenerative practices and care about the soil and all of those things, but I feel like that's been highlighted being here.
Yeah, it definitely puts it into a new perspective. I think when we were studying, the word clean gets used a lot, like, you know, clean rows, like clean edges, everything needs to be clean. And I feel like that's been, and I think that also lends itself to the quite like, you know, you want things to be perfect, you want them to be neat. I feel like my approach to weeding has been rewilded a bit, essentially. It's we sort of started to learn about we get quite a lot of scarlet pimpernel in the garden, which is the turtle doves feed on the seeds, which I didn't know before I came here. But all these little nuggets of information, I think, really overall do affect the decisions we make in the garden. I think we definitely leave more wilder edges, and sort of more plants is better and more is more, essentially. And as long as the crop is thriving, and as long as, you know, we don't want the nettles to kind of go to town, or we don't want to have loads of perennial weeds, but essentially it's more roots in the ground feeding the microbes, and that's great. So.
And I still love a like perfectly spaced straight plants. So we're growing cat flowers to sell in the shop and also to dress the tables in the cafe. But they are spread throughout the garden so that when there are flowers I don't pick in time, they work a bit as a companion planting as well. It's just about, I guess it's both about creating habitat. I think it's also for sort of visual appearance of the garden, that it's nice to have flowers around while we're working.
Yeah, definitely. I think we sort of manage within the beds and around the beds very differently. We've just sized our wildflower meadow at the top, but we're removing the hay from that, so it's quite trying to make a more nutrient poor space with it, so it's a different habitat. And then the herb garden again is a very different sort of space in terms of what plants can thrive. So I think trying to have these different spaces to create more opportunities for different plants, different species to thrive.
And I think a way this site might develop is that we've sort of purely grown annuals in the space and thought we just need to get some cropping going, get to know the site. But I'd love to break it up for some more perennial features. So that's definitely on the cards, I think.
Yeah. I hope we can have some time this winter to make a plan where we could be planting some out late winter, early spring. And I think I sort of think of that both as part of a drainage strategy in a way, with having more roots in the ground. But I think it's a challenge with what would survive over a wet winter. So there's definitely some planning. But I'd hope that might be something someone coming by next year would see.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, this being year 3, we've sort of been building on consistently, and I feel like next year might look like not expanding the vegetable production much, but trying to open the doors a bit more, do a bit more public engagement. We have started doing tours this year, but we'd love for more people to come round.
I think the thing I think about in a year like this one, where we've had a really challenging spring, lots of slugs, it can be so demotivating to put a lot of effort into something like this. But I think the sort of thing about diversity and growing things that you love to grow are so worth it. And even if there's a lot of loss at the beginning, persevering kind of gives you that even greater sense of achievement. And it's hard, but it's so worth doing. And I think really, like any act of trying to grow some vegetables or herbs, even if it's a tiny space, it's just so worth doing. It can give so much. Maybe you'd see some Indian runner ducks in the spring if you came round, which is what we'd really like to do to get on top of the slug problem. That would be, if we achieved that, that'd be great. Yeah. Yeah.